Hi, I'm Robbie Bobby, Grateful ACA, and on this video I'd like to talk about symptoms of the traits and healing within the framework of ACA. And I'd like to start with the idea that each trait is associated with certain feelings and possible behaviors, what I call symptoms of the traits. And I think it's a good exercise to go down the list of the 14 traits and think about all the ways they show up in your life. Write them down. This way you may be able to recognize when a particular trait is active by recognizing one of the symptoms. For example, trait 1 says, we became isolated and afraid of people and authority figures. For me, the list of symptoms includes staying home, right? That would be, I guess, a way to avoid people. Also, not reaching out to anyone. They call that the 900-pound telephone. So these are some of the more obvious behaviors associated with isolating, which is the first part of the trait. But there are some that are not as obvious, such as not being my authentic self, which is something that I often do when I'm with other people. So I can isolate even when I'm not alone. So it doesn't look, right? It wouldn't seem to anyone or even to myself that I'm isolating. But if I slide into approval-seeking mode, which is trait 2, then my authentic self isolates. So those are a few of my behaviors associated with trait 1, which also includes trait 2. And when I do these, it may lead to feeling lonely or depressed or even bored. So these are a few of the feelings associated or possibly associated with trait 1. I also have feelings and behaviors associated with trait 2 and 3 and 4 and so on. So why is this important to know? Because when a trait is activated, you don't get an alert on your phone, you don't get an email or a text message. You only know by how you're feeling and how you're behaving. And by the way, since ACAs have a tendency to stuff their feelings, trait 10, you may only be able to detect the activation of a given trait by your behavior. So you can study and memorize the traits word for word, but if you don't recognize the feelings and behaviors, you'll likely remain a reactor rather than an actor. Trait 14. So what do you do when you find yourself reacting to your childhood wounds, or rather to the traits? Well, there are many tools in the ACA recovery toolbox, but the most powerful, the most important, in my opinion, is practicing self-love as quickly as possible. This is the foundation of the Tony A steps. And I've come up with a prayer to help me to do this. God, please help me to love the wounded parts of myself so that they can heal. I'm going to put out another video that expands on this simple version of the prayer by incorporating or integrating, to use an ACA word, the 14 traits as well as the different components of love. So please check back for that. And one final thought on this, or rather train of thought, is that healing childhood wounds is a process, not an event. It will likely take the rest of my life to heal the deepest wounds. In my opinion, it takes a commitment to practice self-love on a daily basis. Tony A step 3, we made a decision to practice self-love. Next, I need to be on guard for when I'm acting out any of the traits by being familiar with their associated feelings and behaviors so that I can practice self-love as quickly as possible. Tony A step 10, we continue to take personal inventory and to love and approve of ourselves. By the way, steps 4 through 9 allow me to go from a decision to practice self-love in step 3 with the action of loving and approving myself in step 10. And this, my ACA friends, is the deal. This is the solution. It's easy to get distracted or even overwhelmed with all of ACA's literature and workbooks. And I'm not knocking them, they're all great. But never lose track of the main goal of ACA recovery, which is, in my opinion, to practice self-love. I believe it is the only medicine that can heal our childhood wounds. I'm Robbie Bobby. Thank you for listening, and keep coming back.